りおしまい。
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Get the Mic, the only show where your host on the left, Owl,
and your host on the right, Brock,
dissect fiction for its mythological significance. And on today's episode, we are continuing on with Dragon Ball, episode 135, The Chosen 8, in the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai Saga. Before we continue, we hope everyone had a happy new year. We removed the snow. Pretty sure the snow was causing the issue of why we couldn't stream last time, for anyone that was curious, because it seems to be working fine now, as far as I can see. Other than that, I think, do we have any addendums from last episode?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, cool. Well, if you like what you hear, go ahead and give us a subscribe and a like. You can also join our Discord up in the top left-hand corner. There's our YouTube link, and you can also follow us on X. But let's go ahead and get started. So, we left off in the last episode, Preliminary Peril, with Chiaotzu being knocked out unconscious by Tao Pai Pai. And what we start off with this episode is just a continuation of that. The only thing I want to mention real quick, is the name, The Chosen 8. So we did decide to go with the Japanese name this time instead of the dub title. And I think mostly it's, wait, hold on. I want to see what the dub title is again real quick.
Battle of the Eight, I believe.
Battle of the Eight. Yeah, they actually don't battle in this. I think it's more apt to say the Chosen 8, because we have to. It's allowing a reframe of something that even we were alluding to before the stream when we were just talking about like the meaning of this arc. And the Chosen 8 is different from the Battle of the Eight, right? The Chosen 8
Right.
indicates that the heavens are involved in this selection process. And notably, which we'll talk about in a minute, there's someone absent that actually changes that every other time. Any other comments on the title before I proceed?
No, I think this is just keeping with the trend of the dub, using these kind of like over-the-top titles that will draw your attention but aren't actually about what happens in the episode.
Sure. I mean, if I was a kid and I saw these two titles and I'm coming home on the bus, I'm watching it anyways. But retaliate does sound better. Is like it's gonna let you down more because none of that happens. But
Yeah.
anyways, let's go ahead and proceed. Ooh, I need to get rid of this sound. There we go. So, the first thing we see, like I said, is the aftermath of Chaozu. Not just Chaozu, but other contenders in the preliminaries are also being escorted out on stretchers. And I have this way up in speed. And our main dragon crew is there to kind of react to it and wonder what's going on. They don't know who's in there, so it's a lack of information. They don't know that Majunior's there or Tao. They don't even know who
I like
Majunior
that
is.
Roshi does comment there that it seems like this tournament is more brutal than before. That kind of is the theme of what we were talking about, that the stakes of it are higher and that there's sort of a more, I mean, pretty much every episode we're seeing threats of killing throughout this whole tournament arc. But that's it'll come back up a little bit later in this episode too, that the tournament itself is more brutal than it's been in the past.
Right, and as we've said, it's an escalation of stakes because of the ever let's say progressing spirit that Goku is inhabiting. And so at this point, this is what we're up against. And it's kind of, I mean, that's one of the points about Goku is the almost limitless nature of that ceiling. But yeah, it's the brutality, and we also see that it's not just Tao that's sending these fighters out on stretchers. Like this has become um not like a friendly competition anymore, right? This is it's almost it's almost like Tao and Ma Junior are trying to break the spirit of other contenders by being this brutal to them. And that's what we see in a way too with the decreased number of participants already.
Right.
So, that we get through we do get this little part where Goku talks about being my junior being King Piccolo's double, and that he has trained more, so he's stronger than King Piccolo was. And that is an interesting idea because the reincarnation, right, of King Piccolo, it's not that he is he by his very nature, he's already stronger in the metaphysical than just Piccolo because it's the son of the Devil King, let's say. Now, what I want to get into there, and I'm curious to what you have to say about this, Brock, is that the Piccolo's answer to his defeat was using similar methodology that was used to defeat him. So we see that Goku being the symbolic son of Roshi and all these spiritual fathers, his redemption of that. That's kind of what he's getting at when he makes Ma Junior to begin with. And so I'm curious what you have to say about Piccolo's instantiate or Ma Junior's instantiation here so far.
Well, it's tied into what we saw with his arrival and the lightning striking the clock and all the things that are related to time when it comes to this Piccolo, which is that the first Demon King is sort of this. He's the, how would I put it? He's one thing. He's one instantiation of the idea that he represents, whereas Piccolo Junior, as a concept, is more of a time-based instantiation. It's like the instantiation of the spirit that he represented across time. Um, and it's basically putting a temporal dimension to it, which is to say that just simply defeating that one instantiation of the Demon King isn't sufficient. You actually need to be able to continually have a spirit that can combat it across time instead of in one instance.
Yes, and by it's kind of a double-edged sword in that way. So it is evil's like greatest triumph that it's always able to reappear, right? But it's also its greatest weakness that it can be kept in check in that way.
Yeah, it's able to instantiate itself, meaning that it's not like it's not like how it is with humans, where it takes two humans to create another human. Instead, Piccolo spits out an egg that's a one-to-one transfer of himself, which is to say that the the evil propagates itself, but is limited by its own propagation because of what it is. It doesn't adapt and instant. Well, that's the problem with evil, is that it doesn't allow itself to adapt to other things. Well, initially, anyway. But that's what we'll get into towards the end of this and going into Dragon Ball Z. But I think he encodes a weakness. Well, a weakness from the point of view of evil, but a strength ultimately in Piccolo by creating him a temporal being instead of being hard locked as just one instantiation, because that does allow for Piccolo Jr. to grow, which is what Goku's commenting on here, is that, oh, he must have trained, he must have become stronger. We don't really see that Demon King Piccolo ever needed to train. He just was the way that he was, right? So it's pointing to the fact that and training, as we've talked about it and we'll continue to talk about, in martial arts, training in martial arts is learning to move better in the world, right? And so we see that Piccolo Jr. has the capacity to improve the way that he moves in the world. Now, at this stage, we haven't delved super deep into Piccolo Jr., but this is the first glimmer that he's not locked. He's not just one note like the original Demon King Piccolo is.
Well, also, I like a lot of what you said there. I think that the fact that he's smaller goes into some of it too. His design, the fact that he's smaller than King Piccolo, right? It allows him to better move in the world, and the fact that he went 3 years traveling around, Piccolo never, King Piccolo never did anything like that, right? So his training per se is not like martial arts training. It is literally what we've been saying about being a spirit in the world, and maintaining that spirit and strengthening it over time. And the oh goodness, I was gonna say something about oh yeah. So what we see too with Piccolo being this way, King Piccolo never was like, avenge me, go to the Tenkaichi Budokai and avenge me. But Piccolo, the way he is Piccolo Jr., the way he is, his sights are elevated because of the spirit that Goku has summoned forth, right, through King Piccolo. And the way that King Piccolo has adopted that methodology to try and redeem himself has created Piccolo Jr., which has decided that the best way to do this is to go about the World Martial Arts Tournament and debase the ideas that allowed Goku to propagate himself. And I think that's why he's
One,
so cruel to the preliminary contestants.
well, to point also to one very specific thing about what brought Piccolo Jr. into the world in the first place was when Goku defeats Demon King Piccolo, he punches a hole through the center of him and punches out the kanji on the center of his chest and goes straight through him, like travels through his body and out the other side. And then after that, Piccolo goes, well, I'm not going to be defeated this way. And then he spits out the egg, which is, you could look at it as a way of Piccolo having that, for that split second before he creates Piccolo Jr., having that rigid nature blasted out of him and Goku literally being absorbed into him, and the way that Goku moves being taken into himself, and him propagating a counterpoint to Goku before his instantiation goes away, right? So in a literal sense, Goku goes inside of him and then he spits out, the antithesis of Goku's way of moving in the world into the world.
And it's hard to fully analyze that before we talk about Z, because I definitely will put a pin on this and get back to King Piccolo's death, because we need to understand the full context. You kind of have to, much like the New Testament, let's say, you kind of have to have the full context of it. So we need to talk about the Saiyans and Uzaru and all that before we can fully contextualize it. But for now, I think that's a good way of
Yeah.
putting it. That Goku's, and like I said, we'll get more into it later. It's not so much that Goku's like using the Kamehameha wave to say some truth, but he is acting in a world that impresses upon King Piccolo the redemptive power of the spirit of the sun. And so in that minute, or in that second, those seconds, you're right. He's acknowledging that in a way.
It's like he integrates it literally into himself as Goku blasts through him,
Right. Yeah.
and then he puts that back out. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's continue. We should be. No, I went too far. So we see the next couple scenes are all the fighters that we have come to know advance in the preliminaries. And it's interesting too that you mention that it's the most brutal of the tournaments. I think I feel like the preliminaries are more, not even, but like there's more of a chance that people get out in this one than any other. Especially because we do see Chaozu get out like in the first round. And so
Right.
it's not like in the first one, or let's say the 21st one, where Goku and Krillin just breeze through everything and there's not even a chance that they're not going to make it, right? And that's another thing that we need to talk about towards the end, which is the passage of, not, it's not even time, it's like eras. We're going from the mythological to the modern in mythological terms. It's really interesting, and the only one of the only stories to do it this well. But anyways, so we see them all advancing. We see Yajirobe bite a guy's butt because that's Yajirobe. Um, Goku advances, Krillin advances. They all go on until we see um oh, there is one person that we haven't really talked about, which would be Chi Chi. She also advances. So it's Tao, Tien, Goku, Krillin, Yamcha, Chi Chi, Tao, Pai Pai, and Ma Junior. All right, so
And
that's pretty much it. Do you have anything to say in this montage here? I didn't have many notes here. They all
not a
advance.
lot, just that it just shows the attitudes that the different fighters have towards the competition itself, where we see Piccolo, he's attacked by someone and they grab his ankle and he's like, "Get away from me!" and he kicks him. He's like, "Don't touch me!" and he kicks him against the wall and hurts him really bad. And you see Tao Pai Pai is just like taking pleasure in hurting people. But then when Goku wins his, he's like, "I did it!" And there's this kind of I think it's just showing this to show the difference between uh it is a more brutal tournament, but the Z fighters still treat the tournament with respect, whereas the like Ma Junior and Tao Pai Pai are not treating the tournament itself with a level of respect. Uh, and I think that that kind of plays into what we're about to see with this eighth contender, right?
Mm, with our final contender. Yeah, and I think too, I like what you were saying there, because Goku getting this guy out is actually a lot different than what we've seen Goku in the preliminaries before. Before, he has like played around with his victims, let's say, like stood there and like taunted them or knocked them like really far. But here it's like really operational. I'm gonna knock you out of the ring, not gonna hurt you or anything, just gonna knock you out of the ring every time. That's pretty much what Goku does every time. And it's nice to see that he's developed a level of maturity in which violence, it needs to be kept to a minimum just to achieve the end. It's not to take pleasure in um fighting someone that doesn't present any kind of challenge, let's say.
But I thought that's the only thing that Goku cares about is
Right.
fighting strong guys.
Let's fight a strong man. Anyways, I do really like seeing that here, and it does go to show those two. The only other thing I'll say is Piccolo chokes out this guy, and that's it.
Yeah.
He just chokes him out. He just like lifts him up and chokes him out, and the ref's like, "Oh, that's the end." So they all advance, and we finally get to see what comes of our last entry into the tournament, and it this seemingly middle-aged nerd is like walking around. The monks are telling him to get out because only contestants can be back here in the preliminaries. And we see that this guy is supposed to be fighting Yajirobe. And eventually he does get in. And he's actually, I don't know if you notice, he's what I use the thumbnail from the thumbnail. And I think his character's super important. So his name's Hero in the dub, and I think Shen in the sub, which makes it really confusing because the Crane Hermit is named Shen in the dub for some reason. So Hero and Yajirobe square off, and it doesn't seem serious. Like Hero has forgotten to like zip up his pants, and he ran out of the toilet because he was late. It seems like the whole thing about this guy is a joke. And so the battle starts. Yajirobe's like, whatever. And Hero slips. And on his way up, he knocks Yajirobe out cold. Also hurting his own head, I guess. This also goes to show something really important about Dragon Ball that I think gets forgotten later on. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Well, we'll see. Anyways, what I was going to say there is that Hero hurts his own head there, like his actual physical body. Why did this freaking freeze? That doesn't work. I'm gonna have to reload it. His actual physical body is not supernatural like one might expect. We'll see what happens, but
Yeah, my assessment of what he's doing in this scene, coming out with his fly down and tripping and making everybody laugh, it would be hard to explain without talking about who he really is and what his role is in all this.
right,
But
exactly. That's why I'm struggling with it.
let me put it this way, right? We talked about this a long time ago in the series that I talked about a kind of a Buddhist parable about a monk asking someone to tell him who he really is, and so he tries to list his accomplishments, and he says, "No, I'm talking about who you are," and he lists his name, and he says a lot of different stuff, and the monk is like, "No, I'm asking who you are," and then later on, as they're sitting around and telling stories, the man laughs, and then the monk points at him and says, "There you are," and it's this idea that who you really are, that your true self is not something that you logically create, but it's something that's brought out of you in the moments that you move automatically. So a laugh is something you can't control, it's something that is spontaneous, and that the way that this fighter is moving in the world elicits that laughter out of people. Um, and it makes him unassuming, but it's to say that the way that he is brings that happiness out. It brings out the true expression of people, which also, when that happens, think of whenever, for instance, Goku finally catches Karin. Whenever he's on Karin's tower, he catches him by tickling him and making him laugh. Right?
Mhm.
Um, it's
Yeah,
he is
he
bringing
breaks.
out.
Mhm.
He breaks down that ego. He breaks down that defensiveness and kind of immediately cuts to the chase of your vulnerability. And Yajirobe comments to himself, he's like, "Oh, I didn't think I was going to run into someone that strong here. That's not fair. I shouldn't have even shown up." And it's funny because Yajirobe is perfectly correct, especially
Ironically.
because especially because of who this is, right? So
Right, exactly. And I mean, we can recontextualize this a little bit later, but I think the idea of taking it lightly, because this character hero may or may not be flying at some point. But
Yeah, angels fly because they take themselves
yeah,
lightly, right?
definitely. I mean, that's exactly it. And I think too, it is very poignant to have him in this tournament because, like we've said, this tournament is really brutal. The stakes are higher, and this character shows that the necessary humility in participating in the Tenkaichi Budokai. He's almost representative of that, because the other thing that we haven't even talked about what he does is he bows, unlike a lot of other fighters that we've seen so far.
Hmm, that is true.
Let's continue. So, I skipped. No, no. It's all right. At least I have these bookmarked this time. Except now they're not working. I love this platform. In. I don't even know how that's freaking possible. Oh well. All right. So, when we get back from the little break there, it is the announcer that's telling everyone to draw their lots, all 8 of our semifinal contestants. And the first thing he sees is Krillin, who last time he saw dead, so he kind of freaks out and thinks he's a ghost. It's interesting that they just brush this off, but there's also something I want to say about the announcer here. He's such a tie to the real modern audience that it's super important to have him be not only reactive to the supernatural things that happen in the world, but also the fact that he's aged. He has a mustache now. He looks a little older, right? It really goes
Hmm.
into the world building and helps solidify how um, he is representative of the voice of the judges of heaven, more or less. And he is reacting in these ways to this because it is and he's a commoner too. He's not like a fighter. He's not powerful or anything. And it's due to that. And the reason the tournament's there, all of that, and the reason there's a crowd and all of that is because it is it's supposed to be a collective raising of everyone's spirits by participating in this tournament. Obviously, the winner does it too, but we see this even in competitions today. The pushing forward of the human spirit to the extremes can bring out such actions that raise the entire level of the human spirit, and especially in Dragon Ball, where we see things happen on a mythological level. That's true. And so I really like the tournament announcer. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but
No, I think you're right that he is a part of the tournament. Like that's to say that like y- it, it makes me think of things like even with like the Muppets where you have commentators who are part of the process of the show that you're watching where you're like he he is as much a part of the tournament as the other ritualistic things. Like there has to be, as part of what the tournament is, an intermediary person who speaks for the things that are happening that articulates it. And he wears his sunglasses and he kind of has this thing about him where he how do I put it? He's like a witness, a witness to the things that are happening and translates it to the audience.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that witness too. I think that's the perfect word for it. Actually, is he
Yeah.
bears witness to the events that happen unfolding under the heavens. Um,
Which he witnessed the death of Krillin, which was the last thing that happened following the last tournament, right?
yeah. So, hey Baze, what's going on, buddy?
Yo.
Good to see you. Glad you were able to make it. We do also see this, Brock. We see the eventual lineup, which we can't read here, but we already know it. The first match is Tao Pai Pai versus Tien. And this is actually where I wanted to bring in the next big piece of the puzzle in let's say Providence, because who's not here at this drawing?
Well, it's Chao Tzu mainly.
Right, and that's the big point, is that he's the one that always sets it up, like, oh, set the matches this way, especially last time where he wanted to set up Yamcha first, Tien did,
Yep.
to like demoralize the others, which was one of the big points of Tien's character at that point. He's not here this time, so we actually get the matchups as they are intended to be, um, according to chance, according to the, let's say, the universe, more or less. And so we see Tao Pai Pai versus Tien first, and then it's Goku versus Chi Chi, or Anonymous, and then it's Krillin versus Ma Junior, and last is Hero versus Yamcha. So, anything do you want to say about the matchups?
I mean, every one of the matchups is significant. The first one being, we talked about how it was kind of a sin in a way for Chaozu to be manipulating the fates the way that he was, and that's kind of what he brought forth with Tao Pai Pai. And now it comes directly to, of course, Tien, because Chaozu is an extension of Tien. So that makes sense. I mean, the Goku and Chi Chi one we'll talk about very soon.
Well,
That's Providence, like you'd
yeah, I
said.
think the first matchup for sure is almost karmic justice, that heaven is meeting out, that Tien has to deal with this right now.
Yeah.
He has to deal with it before he can even contend to be number one under the heavens as well, right? It's not like he gets to save this and put it off to the last match. He's got to contend with it
Right.
at this level before he's even on the let's say semifinal level.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And that's what these tournament fights always seem to point to, is those personal character development things that represent whether or not they're ready to move to the next level of their own instantiation. So this is like, okay, you need to grapple with the sort of demoralization and destruction that you brought to the tournament last time as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he needs to essentially overcome his own. I wouldn't say that he's his shadow, but it is like him fighting his own shadow. He is a representative of the past, and we'll see that in their fight. He's a representative of how Tien moved in the tournament before, that he needs to prove that he is better than, so that he can participate in the real battle.
Yeah, exactly. I think and that could only happen without Chaozu's like injury, let's say. And I mean that all we talked a little bit about that already, but like Chaozu's injury being tied to Tien's now being Tien's psyche now being vulnerable. Looks like Baze turned 33 on Monday. That's awesome. Happy late birthday.
Happy
I'm
late
not
birthday!
sure the
Congrats.
other. I think Brock's gonna have to address the other part of that chat.
Let me pull this.
We can continue. We can save it towards the end. So yeah. So Chi-Chi, Goku, and Chi-Chi.
Ooh, yeah,
It's
the
very
Grail.
important for that to
I want to
happen.
talk about that after this episode.
Okay, we'll talk about it after. It's very important for Goku and Chi-Chi to happen for obvious reasons, and we'll get there once we get there. But it is providential that this woman that was mad at Goku is the one that he's up against first, and she won't even give her name. And then we have Krillin versus Ma Junior, and it's interesting that Krillin actually goes up and he's like, "Who's Ma Junior?" And the announcer's like, "That's Ma Junior," and points at Piccolo. And the reason I think it's interesting is because it is setting up the idea of Krillin being oblivious to the evil in the world that still exists. Even though he was killed by it, right? He's still kind of oblivious to it. and it's going to be something that he has to contend with in a way that is maturing for him. Let's say, I think it's due to his contention, or let's say his death at the hands of Piccolo Jr.'s henchmen, that it has to be him that kind of contends with that. And he doesn't have to, like, as we see, it's not like he has to defeat it or anything, but it is something that he has to approach forthrightly in order to proceed past this, or else he would just die again. And I think that, and by die again, I mean go unconscious towards getting to be number one under the heavens, all of that.
Right. This is the opportunity for him not to die as a result of coming in contact with this spirit again.
Yeah,
That's it. And the
exactly.
announcer calls it out just now where he's like, I saw you die to, he doesn't know necessarily that his participation is to come back up against the same thing that killed him. But he says, I saw you die, and he said, "Oh, I came back to life." Okay? The
Oh,
very
I
next
just
thing
came
that he's
back to
gonna do
life
in
that
that
time,
tournament.
actually, and then they move on
Yeah.
with the scene.
That's it. He doesn't even say anything else, but immediately following that, it's just, that's that providence of the witness, the announcer, says to him, "I saw you get killed," and he's like, "I'm back to fight again." So obviously, the very next thing he has to do is fight that same thing that the witness saw kill him. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then we have Yamcha versus Hero, and as we've seen already, Hero is this instantiation of play and humility that needs to be involved in the number one under the heavens. And we're actually, I think this is probably Yamcha's best showing, but we'll get into it when we get to that match. Um, and I think there's reasons for it we will talk about, but it is, well, what Yamcha would not even have to overcome. Yamcha really gets the worst luck. He he doesn't really have a chance of winning it because of what we'll talk about when we get to the fight. But as far as what the matchup is meaning, it's not so much that Yamcha's jobbing or anything like that, but it is setting up the ideas of those virtues being paramount to advancement under the heavens, which Hero is able to display in spades, and um, we're gonna see that.
yeah,
So, so.
I'll say what we do know go before we go into that fight when it comes to Yamcha is that historically Yamcha, one of his big failings is that he's taken himself a little bit too seriously,
Mhm. Yeah.
and we know that Shin, his whole instantiation, the way he moves in this world, is that he does not take himself seriously at all.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's well, we'll get there. I don't want to spoil it. Or I don't want to like get ahead of ourselves per se. So, let's move on. Thing keeps freezing. So they go back and they tell Master Roshi and Bulma like all that's going down in the preliminaries, and Crane Hermit comes by and he's like, "You don't stand a chance against my brother." And then he waddles away. That's pretty much it. Um,
It's a good back and forth.
Goku's
They
not
basically
worried.
they
Yeah,
burn him pretty good.
yeah. Goku's not worried. He's basically like, uh, Tao Pai Pai's not at all. Basically, Goku already knows by virtue of even I mean he doesn't know yet that they've climbed up Corn Tower, but he does know that they've experienced true malice because of King Piccolo. So they already know, he already knows that if they've been able to survive through that, they can survive through Tao.
Yeah. One thing that I really like about this that I just want to shout out is the uh the basis that Crane Hermit is insulting them is he's like calling them his students, calling them Roshi students, and Roshi says, "Well, they've gone their own way now." And he's like, "Well, they're still wearing your gi." And I think it's either Yamcha or Tien says, "Yeah, well, unlike you, some people actually respect Master Roshi,"
Oh yeah, and then he
which
waddles
is
away.
a pretty great indictment of the problem with the Crane Hermit, right? Which is that he's an island. He doesn't have a school that people would
Well, he lost that. He lost his
be loyal to.
legitimacy, right? He had a
Yeah.
school. He threw it all in on the 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai to prove that his school, his philosophy was number one under the heavens, and it wasn't. I mean, even though Tien won, his philosophy lost.
Now he's just a representative of malice because he just wants to see revenge for losing his school. So he's insulting the concept of the school, and they're basically telling him, "We choose the school because we still respect him. You don't have any respect."
Listen up, you old coot. Yep, it's good. And so they leave, the three turtle school fighters leave, and this whole time Tien is like in it. Oh wow, I got a got a good frame there. Tien is in it. He's in the I guess the tournament grounds, like the building back there, and he's just like focused on his fight with Tao. And I think it's not so much that he's afraid, but it is squaring out the at all the character flaws and let's say the disintegrations that he adopted into his person during the times in which he was emulating Tao Pai Pai.
Yeah.
Look at this frame. Oh my gosh. I should have used this frame for the thumbnail. Oh well. So lunch is back. She just goes ahead and blasts her way through, and you know, it's classic. It's actually one of the last times we're gonna see these antics. So sad to
This
see it go.
this scene, it's a funny gag, but I think that it actually means something, which is that. So we talked about how this is a tournament that's more brutal than the previous tournaments, and Roshi had called out that it was a more brutal tournament. When it comes time for Tien to fight against that brutality, to confront that brutality of the tournament, because that's what he's doing, then Bulma calls on Lunch to pull out a gun and scare people away so that they can view this, so they can witness it, right? It's like they have to participate in a certain level of brutality to watch the brutality that's happening in this tournament.
It's a buy-in, yeah. And it's also I like too that it's come to the point where Bulma has socially integrated herself into the group such that she can manipulate Launch to do the things that she wants her to do, instead of it being like, oh, we're all scared of blonde Launch per se. And it's Bulma that has to do that, right? Because I mean Roshi can't. Roshi's not socially sophisticated as that, and Bulma is. And so
It's just it shows how instantiated Bulma is and how integrated she is at this point in the story, right? That
Yeah,
she's a lot more mature,
it's good to see.
which
Good
we
to
talked
see.
about at the beginning of this arc.
Oh yeah, Changes, our 2-hour episode. Go watch
Yeah.
Changes if you haven't. It's a great episode. So they walk around and talk about how Tao is strong, and then Goku's like, "Don't worry about it." So he says, "You want something to eat?" And he pulls out some senzu beans. And little does Goku know, but both Yamcha and Krillin also pull out some senzu beans from Korin. So this proves to Goku that they went to Korin's tower and they climbed Korin's tower. And I think what we're getting at here is that they have also learned the mapping of spirits onto themselves. And this is something we're actually going to see in Krillin's fight. And I would actually argue in Yamcha's fight too, that they both do adopt some of the lessons learned from Korin, although not as holistically as Goku. I think Goku has the best approach to that lesson per se. But I also think that has to do with how Goku was like a wild man for so long.
It's
So
great too that
go ahead.
as a result of that, they invited Yajirobe, and that's the reason Yajirobe was in this in the first place, was because the three of them went up Korin Tower and invited him to come participate in this.
Yes, yes. And I mean Yajirobe was the second one to climb up it after Goku. I guess the
Right.
third one ever. So yeah, it goes to show. But the thing is that we know, and that's what I meant when I was saying we can assume this means that they did that, because we know for a fact that Yajirobe did not pass Korin's tests. He didn't take them, right? But we do see these lads seemingly have done it, and we can see it in their fights. We also see, because they didn't get eliminated in the preliminaries, and especially the two showings between Yamcha and Yajirobe, which we'll talk about in a few episodes.
I guess it's kind of interesting to think of the passing of that level as being kind of a filter for the preliminaries too, because who gets knocked out but Chaozu, who is someone who effortlessly flies. And climbing Korin Tower is sort of an embodiment test, your ability to embody that sort of mapping.
And Chaozu's never been much of an embodiment at all, has he? I mean, look at his stature.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So, the announcer next says that the Tenkaichi Budokai is about to begin, and we see a brief glimpse of the fighters as usual, and they're called out, Tien and Tao Pai Pai. Now, there is something interesting that happens here with Tien and Yamcha. And it just is a little character moment. So Krillin says to go win, basically, and Yamcha grabs his hand and looks at him and, like, you know, this is like yeah, this is like I don't know if it's a good analogy actually, but it's like if you're kids and you got to go like stand up to your dad or something, and your friend is like encouraging you to go. It's a really fraternal moment between the two of them, and I like it a lot. Um and it's also indicating too that Yamcha knows the severity at stake with fighting Tao.
Yeah.
Then the first match begins, and we don't actually see it. Basically, that's the end of the episode. Wait, what does he say?
Yep.
Oh,
A lot of setup.
yeah, yeah. So that's pretty much it, right? I think there's like 20 seconds left. It's just reaction shots now, isn't it? The fierce
Kind
battles,
of a
yeah.
weird shot where it brings those blue bars in and goes into
Don't you love these blue
widescreen.
bars? It's widescreen, but not. It's just cut off completely.
Yeah, you can tell that they didn't draw the frames this way.
What? Why did they do this? Anyways, very questionable decision. But yeah, if you wanted to add anything there at the end, feel free.
No, I think that anything that I add is going to step on the conversations we're going to have in the next few fights. Because this is a pretty light episode. I mean, we've talked about it quite a bit, but this is all setting the stage for now a rapid succession of fight, 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 all the way through to the end of the arc and of the show.
And it's setting the tone, the symbols, the expectations. We can kind of understand where everything is because of this episode, which is really important. But at the same time, it doesn't conclude anything, so we don't have any like big messages to reveal because nothing's said yet. Like, it hasn't been said if Tien can actually overcome what Tao represents. So I think we can go ahead and wrap this one up. Like, I guess we were doing that though right now. It's like, this episode really sets things up. It sets up those characters and the battles that we're going to see. I especially like the removal of Chaozu because it allows us to get a vulnerable Tien, and we also get Providence inserted into the story with the pairings, because as we're going to see what happens in the pairings, those things were kind of destined to happen, it seems.
Yep, and we get a foreshadowing of Shin's participation in this and what it's ultimately going to mean.
Yeah. I mean, the buildup is great, Baze. It's just we don't have any conclusions to come to yet. But I did like this episode. It's obviously part of the main canon, so always going to be good. But anything you want to add there, Brock, before we go ahead and address some of our chats?
No, I think that we extracted everything we could out of this episode.
For now. For now. There'll be some things to recontextualize, like
Yeah,
Yajirobe's fight against Shen.
yeah. I'm
But
having to hold a lot of that back, but yeah.
mostly, yeah. Mostly, yeah. So I'll let you go ahead and address this. I think you've told me vaguely about this, though. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So, Baze, I've been reading about the mystery of the Grail. I'm not very well read on the different Grail mysteries, and I want to become better read on it. So I'm probably going to sign up for that same course. That's the Dr. Martin Shaw in the Symbolic World doing a course on the Grail, on the Grail mysteries and Percival's hunt. I I've gone through Gawain and the Green Knight, and I have read different things, but I've gotten really, really interested in it lately, insofar as my analysis of Elden Ring, actually. I have a lot of thoughts whenever it comes to the influence that the Grail mystery had on the setup of the world of Elden Ring. So I'm really excited for that class. I think that's going to be super helpful for contextualizing a lot of the stuff that I think about it. I'm really excited for that. I mean, I've done a couple of the courses in the past on the symbolic world, so having Martin Shaw be attached to it too, it's exciting for sure.
Hell yeah, I'm glad that's the case. I am also interested in that. I don't think I'll sign up for the class quite yet. I'm so freaking busy though right now. Anyways, that's a personal thing. And speaking of personal things, Baze didn't get a magic ring from his eccentric uncle. So, you know what that means. It means his parents drowned everyone, okay? That's what it means. Well, I
But
hope he gets the joke.
we're just saying stuff at him.
Anyways, I think that's gonna wrap us up. I will say, Baze, that Krillin and Junior's a great fight. It really shows a lot of Krillin's individuation from Goku, which is actually something that starts to develop now. Whereas before, especially in, let's say, the Red Ribbon arc and the Baba arc, it is a lot. His character is very closely tied to both Goku and Roshi, and we're starting to see him kind of instantiate into a spirit that is modernized. Like I was saying about a lot of these elements of change that happen throughout this arc is going from the mythological, um, fantastic almost to modernity in dealing with those issues that we have now.
In response to your last message, Baze, I am waiting. I'm holding off a little bit to read them all together. So I know that he is writing them as a singular piece that cross over each other. So I want to give it some time and wait for the others to come out and then really just unpack them all at the same time. I have them. I have them so far sitting on my shelf. Um, but I think as a singular piece, I'm really excited to see what he's doing.
Because you never know what's going to recontextualize things, right? If
Oh yeah.
Dragon Ball's taught me anything, I think that's one of the things I've learned. Anyhow, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. This has
Yeah.
been Dragon Ball episode 135, The Chosen 8, and it has been our pleasure giving you our analysis of the episode. This has been Get the Mic. I'm your host on the left, Owl.
I'm your host on the right, Brock.
We hope you guys have a good night.